seconds, chose the black pieces. Magnus starts with white, gets 10 minutes on the clock. For Iturizaga against Parham Magsudlu, it is Parham who won the bid, and Iturizaga starts with white with 10 minutes. Parham starts with 8 minutes on the clock, has the draw odds. But Robert, again, the question comes down to, is that time that Ivan Saric bid for too low with 7 minutes, 25 seconds? And you were asking about what color I would choose here. I do like white's position, the control in the center, more space. But again, giving draw odds, that's a big, big give here. And is it going to be enough to win? What Magnus is eyeing for, bishop f4, a potential queen d2, bishop h6 ideas, getting the rook into the game. He starts with first blocking out the black bishop on b7, so there's no bishop f3 in those lines.
Yeah, it does look pleasant for white because the knight can slide to d4 at the right moment, up to c6. This bishop is under attack. I think black can try knight e4. I'm not sure if it works out so well, but the point is you start trying to trade pieces, open up your bishop on the g7 square. I do think that Saric is playing this well, but I'm still looking at the clock. 6 minutes, 21 seconds for him. It's really not that much time, and white has a healthy pawn on d5, and that's not a good bishop on b7.
It's not a happy bishop on b7, but any time in the game, it can reroute to the c8, h3 diagonal as well, but not at the moment. He still needs to think about his development, getting that rook from a8 onto the game. Knight e4, as you pointed out, has been played. White has also got to find a way to keep his rooks into the central files. But right now, that b2 pawn, that's a little loose. Robert, do you defend it immediately, or perhaps throw in a rook e1, targeting that knight on e4 first?
Yeah, rook e1's a way of defending by attacking something else, but rook b1 is Magnus' choice, and I think that makes sense. Just keeping the pawn defended. Black can try a move like queen to f6, but this bishop just slides back. And
you want the pieces off the board to get closer to the draw. I think Magnus has to try to flag him. That feels like the only chance that he has. If the game ends in a draw, Ivan Saric wins the match. Magnus, meanwhile, has got a knight on d4, but it looks like not too many penetrating spots for the king. Objectively, it's a draw, Robert. It's going to come down to the clock here.
Objectively, yes, but I actually think even in a classical game, this is still a bit difficult for black, especially now that this pawn is on h5 and this knight at the right time can reroute. So the king will come to e3, the knight will go to e2. If you ever take on h4, which has happened, that frees up the g3 square. And, you know, I haven't read too many chess books, I've admitted that before, but I've seen enough Karpov games in my life to look at this position and say, you know, I feel like white really can press and win this game. Ulf Anderson,
oh my gosh,
I hope you're doing well, but this position looks like one where he would press for a win in an endgame. I actually think that black's in big trouble.
I think in that's a situation when white's knight gets to g3, black will have to take a defensive setup of getting the bishop to defend the h5 pawn. And he wants to do that via g6, but watch out. What about the c7 pawn?
But Magnus is... Who cares? You're not going to attack anything. You play bishop to b1, maybe still knight to b5, and yeah, these pawns are all on dark squares and will be targeted.
And he goes for bishop b1. The idea is that after a3, he wants to go bishop a2, try to put pressure on c4. We see the eval bar creeping up. Robert, you're absolutely on point. That practically not an easy position for black to defend. It might not just be about the clock. With h5 weakness and a c7 weakness, the knight can jump around to attack both. It might actually be a lot worse for black now.
Yeah, but what I do like for Saric is that the bishop tends to outclass a knight when there's things happening on both sides of the board. So if this knight goes to b5 at some point and the king has to go to d4, the black king may come up the board over here and the knight's a bit slow to get back. That said, knight takes c7, knight e8, knight takes d6. All these pawns are going to be in trouble. And Magnus, he's really just sitting on the position. He played b3. Like, he just wants this structure.
Well, he's going to come in with the king. If allowed, he would try to trap up that bishop on a2, so it couldn't stay there for too long. Bishop b1 played. And now after knight b5, black starts targeting white's queenside pawn. So the knight on d4 is actually stuck defending that b3 pawn right now. How do you improve? Magnus looks like he's done everything right. He's got the most beautiful position with the knight on d4, the king on e3, but what's next?
He'll eventually move his king this way and play for b4. Like, he's just gonna... Look at this. The black king can't enter. So that means that Magnus can play like this for 50 moves and then play b4. So he's just gonna waste time. He is doing a perfect Armageddon strategy with no increment. Don't play b4 yet. Don't do... See, I don't love that. Even if it's good for white, he could have burned more clock in the process.
And what you're pointing out, this knight on d4, it really stops all activity. Black's king can't get to f5. The f4 pawn controls the e5 and the g5 square. But now what's next? Does white also go a5, trying to get his own king towards the c7 pawn? But Robert, the more pawns that get traded off, the closer black gets to that draw.
Yes, and a5 takes the king, would have to go up to b7. And is this bishop going to be able to stop it, or is the black king going to be required to go back to d8? And that's wow,
it's
that
happening.
Was quickly spotted by Saric.
Oof. Wow, and he's still got time on the clock. He's got 2 minutes 51 seconds. There's no increment at all. A draw means Saric wins the match, and Magnus will not make it to Division 1 if Saric is able to hold this position. He's found a key defensive resource. Don't go king f5. 93 is a big fork in the air.
Wow, that was a really great idea from Magnus. I think what's going to happen is if bishop d3, knight d, the king now has to go back, and the knight is stuck and can't make progress. But he's wasting Saric's time. Oh, it's a losing move. That's a losing move.
And that's it. You just go king c6 and you win the pawn.
Yeah, you're just winning everything.
But there's king f5.
I think you win 2 pawns just to 1, and your pawns are too fast.
And he does it. King c6. He's going to pick up both c7 and d6. The tension on Saric. He realizes that it's not enough. The c-pawn is just super fast.
And it was Magnus' strategy. You could tell by the way he was playing. And I asked the question earlier, would you play this solidly when you need to win? He was playing for the clock. And Saric bid 7:25. So he was down 2 minutes, 35 seconds to start. Look at the clock, by the way. 2 minutes. And now 25 seconds is the lead for Magnus. So he's kept the time advantage the whole way through. And now he's using it because he has an objectively winning position. He knows that, and he wants to accurately put this game away.
Well, boys and girls, this is how an Armageddon is done. So Magnus there, he's calculated the line, comes back with that knight to e1, will give it up for the f-pawn. Meanwhile, the c-pawn will advance down the board to c6, and only then will he go d7. All right, Saric still asking questions, not allowing this plan. King d4, is it time to give up the d-pawn for the bishop? d7, does that win on the spot and just get the king back, eat up all the king side pawns?
Yeah, here comes the white king, back to f5. And you don't even have king e3 because knight g2 check forks and wins this pawn. This is game over. It means Magnus Carlsen will be in Division 1 of the AIM Chess Rapid event. It's the 4th leg of the Champion Chess Tour. And wow, I feel for Saric. I mean, he really put up a fight. He went on demand against Magnus Carlsen, but his back is literally against the wall. It's proverbially against the wall. He has lost the game. Magnus Carlsen's through.